here we are, stuck in our homes. Still just stuck in our homes. But you know what? That just gives us more time for Star Trek, Dan.
Indeed.
Gives us so much more time for Star Trek. Even to the point that I even tuned in the other night to the very first live, well, I guess you can't call it podcast, but I guess so, a live podcast of the Trek Geeks. They did that the other night for the first time.
Oh, that's cool. I saw they were doing that. I was not able to attend. I can't remember why. It probably slipped my mind because, I mean, where am I going, right? I obviously didn't have plans to go out that night.
I attended it, and they even read some of my comments on the show. So
nice.
Yeah. So it was good. It was fun. And they were giving away stuff. We don't do that. We don't give away stuff here, at least not yet.
Not yet, no. The other thing I've been doing, too, is Tuesdays. I've been attending Larry Nemechek's Trekland Tuesdays things a little more frequently than I used to.
Oh my gosh, I typically do those, but for some reason, I keep forgetting, and I always seem to tune in at the end. Like every time I tune, I'm like, oh, wait, he's on live. Let me go to Larry, and I tune in, and there's Larry going, well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Remember, Portal 47, and I'm like, I'm late again.
Also, I have to say, that's a pretty good Larry Nemechek.
I think I've talked to him a little too much. He's rubbing off on me now. That's kind of scary. So anyway, I was thinking today about how I'm talking to so many people about, how they're doing. I talk to strangers through work that, just in conversations, it always starts off like, hey, this whole coronavirus thing, COVID-19, how are you doing? How's your family? How are you? Like, that's the start of like every conversation. I've talked to so many people who are stressed and have some anxiety, and I've had a little bit of that here and there, but I've been doing pretty well, doing pretty good. And, I was just kind of wanting to check in on ourselves and kind of talk to everyone who's listening and just let you know how we're dealing with things and how we can use Star Trek to get through the days of this whole thing. And, that sounds like something you would hear like a minister talk about, how can we turn to God and use religion and our Christianity or whatever it is that we follow in our day-to-day lives to get through things. And I'm not saying Star Trek is a religion, but, it's something that gives us comfort, right?
Definitely. I mean, it may be kind of silly to equate it that way or elevate it to that level of meaning in some people's lives, I guess. But Star Trek, like a religion for some people, gives our lives meaning. Like, it's something that we hold very dear. It means a lot to us. It fills kind of those empty spaces in our lives sometimes, like, maybe a religion would. And maybe that sounds a little bit too lofty and too whatever, but it brings you comfort, right? I mean, in times like this, you take comfort where you can get it. And for some, that means one thing. And for others, that means Star Trek.
Well, this is going to sound really weird. I try to use Star Trek in my diet. And I'm not dieting right now. I'm not doing a good job. But when I am dieting and I'm like, oh, I want to munch on something. I want another snack. I'm like, no, distract myself. Ooh, just go watch some Star Trek or go read some Star Trek or do something just to supplement that. Like, okay, Star Trek and Oreos. I'm going with the Star Trek.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought maybe you were pulling like Neelix's Star Trek cookbook off the shelf or something. Making something out of there.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you said that because I actually thought today about ordering that. I've never owned that book.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because I saw someone posted a video today of Ethan Phillips in costume as Neelix. And it was like from way back when they were doing Voyager. And they were talking about the cookbook. And I was like, I should get the cookbook. I have time to cook.
Right. I think I saw that too. That's funny. That's probably why it was on my mind as well.
Yeah, I think TrekCore tweeted that out today. So, Dan, how are you doing? Tell us what's going on in your life.
I'm doing okay. I have my moments. Mostly what my anxiety is manifesting as is kind of a lack of motivation. It's weird because I have a lot of time to do a lot of things, but the will sometimes just isn't there. And I find myself kind of wasting a lot of time, watching television or browsing Facebook or Twitter and all that stuff. All those things that, I shouldn't be sinking all of my time into, but have really become huge time sinks for me lately. So, not so much a lot of anxiety or dread or anything like that, but more just kind of a bit of laziness brought on by this, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. So have you been going out at all and putting like a mask and the gloves on to go to the store?
No, I've been doing as best I can to stay inside, except for when I absolutely need to go out, whether it's for, groceries or I guess that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the only reason at the moment. I don't have a job currently. I'm laid off. I was substitute teaching, and of course that's not happening right now. So I have no business going out anywhere. I know where I have to be. So doing my best to, hashtag flatten the curve and all that stuff. So
So you said you're watching a lot of TV. Is it a lot of Star Trek, or are you watching just as much Star Trek as you usually do?
Probably just as much Star Trek as I usually do. I have been noticing I've been watching more lately just because my fiance and I have been making our way through Enterprise, and now we just have kind of more time to do that. So that's kind of ticked up a little bit, which is helpful. I like Star Trek. I like a bunch of other stuff on television as well. The unfortunate thing, and I'm just kind of realizing this now, is we're in season 3 of Enterprise, which kind of sadly, like, I love season 3. There's a lot of great stories in there, but it's not the most uplifting Star Trek out there. Like, we just this evening before we started recording watched the episode Chosen Realm. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the episode, but a group of religious fundamentalists take over the Enterprise and use it in their holy war. But in the end, of course, Archer and them get the Enterprise back and take them back to their homeworld, which has been completely destroyed thanks to the fighting between the religious groups. So, not the most uplifting message at the end of that one, unfortunately. So maybe that's not the right therapy at the moment.
Well, it just reminded me, my kids for some reason started binge watching Last Man on Earth, which is funny because it's kind of like, a plague and everyone died or whatever, but it's in a comedy. I'm like, oh, this is, I guess, really appropriate right now. But yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I always think of like Star Trek as a place I can go to escape and unwind and not think necessarily of the problems of the day, even though they indirectly deal with issues of the day. But that arc that you're talking about is in response to 9/11. And what we're going through now is compared a lot to 9/11. I mean, they're totally different, but it's something that is changing our society and changing how we deal with things. So that's an interesting arc to be hitting at this moment for the reason you just said.
That's true. Yeah, I am noticing a lot of, I want to say synchronicities, I guess, between what we're watching and what, kind of the general mood is in society right now and what's happening right now. It's meaningful and it's good Star Trek, I think. But yeah, sometimes I kind of just like, I don't know, want to flip on something from the heyday of TNG, something a little brighter than what we've been watching lately. But I'm so into the Xindi arc this time as well. So, man, I'm kind of torn about it.
Nah, just keep going. If you're liking it, stick with it,
Definitely, yeah.
I think the thing is, if anybody who's listening right now is having a lot of anxiety about this, there's several things that you can do. And I'm not any kind of expert at this, but, I've talked to people, I've heard things, and I know how I deal with stuff. And one thing I find that helps me cope with this is just avoiding news. It's fine to go and maybe get a news update briefly in the day so you know what's going on. But there's people who are watching the news or reading the news constantly throughout the day, and it really doesn't change that much throughout the day. If anything, it's just going to really depress you more,
Yeah.
It's like, that's why I'm like, just do stuff that you enjoy. If you're starting to feel anxious because of this, I'd say pull back from some of that, because the thing is, fear and anxiety is the unknown. It's what could happen in the future. There's a lot of that goes on. And so I'm telling you, don't focus on the future of what could happen. Focus on the future of Star Trek.
I like that. That's excellent. And speaking as someone who has always been a big proponent of being connected, having your finger on the pulse of what's going on. Like I believe in following the news and that sort of thing. I was regularly listening for the past, I'd say probably 8 years. I have a regular daily podcast that comes out every weekday that I get news from. It's about 40 minutes long, and it's just kind of the news of the day, that sort of thing. For the first time in those 8 years, as of 5 days ago, I unsubscribed to it because that's what was happening to me. I was just getting so anxious and worked up. And, I believe in staying informed. I really do. I'm a former social studies teacher. Like that's my bread and butter. But, when it's something that you can't change, that you can't directly influence right now, and it's affecting your health, as it was mine, I believe, it's time to switch off. Sure, check the news, maybe 10 minutes worth first thing if you absolutely have to or something like that. But the same talking heads repeating the same points over and over and over again, driving home that fear and anxiety really wasn't doing anything for me except making me feel anxious and afraid and not putting me in a good place at all. And ultimately, that's to the detriment of all of us, I think.
I think I've really, over my lifetime, started to unconsciously step away from things and pay less attention to things. I wasn't really noticing it till later, but I started to realize that if I can't control it, why am I getting all worked up about it? Why am I following it? Why am I listening to it? Why? It's like I have so many other things that I could worry about that just in the day to day. Like I'd rather just worry about what am I going to have for breakfast than to worry about something that somebody did or said online or what's going on in the news somewhere, whatever, that it really doesn't affect my life. I mean, I might feel strongly against it and stuff, but I just don't want to get all that worked up all the time. I don't know. It's like, maybe I'm just getting tired. I don't know. But and I think that's how this is. It's like this evening I was trying to make a point to my wife about something, and I said, well, I don't even know how many deaths have there been so far in our state? And she knew the exact number. And I don't even pay that much attention to it. I know that there's a low percentage of deaths. I know there's a low percentage of people affected where I live. It's a lot of people, but when you relate that to how many people are living in my state, it's a very low percentage. And if it starts to really get higher, that's when I need to know that it's ramping up more and more, but I don't need to know exact numbers. I don't need to pay attention to it every day. I just need to take care of what I'm doing and live in the moment. I'm living in the moment. I'm doing this podcast right now. Yeah, I'm talking about it now, but I'm doing this because I want to help people that are listening to this. And maybe listening to this podcast is your way of trying to escape it. And now we're talking about it. And you're like, I don't want to hear this crap. Like, I'm trying not to think about it. But this is really for those who are having anxiety or may have anxiety later. And the point is, talk to friends, have fun, try to do the most you can. Give yourself a daily routine. Make things as normal as possible for yourself. Mm-hmm. That will help with anxiety. Get a hobby. Put puzzles together. So ding, ding, ding. There's a news item of the day. We have puzzles that are being produced that are Star Trek. So we're going to tell you about those. This is what's fun. There's a company called Cobble Hill. And by the way, you can go to trekcollective.com. There's an article in there that was published on Monday, April 6th, and that's what I'm looking at now. But there are several puzzles that are coming out, jigsaw puzzles, that are Star Trek related. And one of them is the Women of Star Trek. There's another one that are posters of Star Trek that are movie posters, and some that are like retro poster designs, various types of puzzles with posters. There's also one that is just images from TOS. And then there's a company called Aquarius. They've got one. I don't know, I'm doing it all really quick, but we're going to talk through some of these. But we have one that's kind of like a retro look with the Gold Key comics. And there's another one with just Spock and Kirk, and one with a bunch of Mr. Spocks. Anyway, all these are available. You can look on Amazon. You can look on Entertainment Earth. But again, if you go to Trek Collective, they're all listed there. So Dan, which one of these, if you're going to get a puzzle, because you have all this time, you're watching a lot of TV, you could do a puzzle, which one's your favorite?
Yeah, these are all really great. On thetrekcollective.com, I should say. great puzzles. He's got pictures there, like full-size pictures of all of these. I have to say, I love this Women of Star Trek one. And the more I look at it, the more like little details I'm picking out in this picture. So, basically all of the woman characters in Star Trek, a lot of the main ones anyway. And each one has their own kind of little square, and there's little images. So, for example, I was looking, the Tasha Yar bit has like Armis looming behind her, and like these designs are really great. I see the Maquis symbol next to Ensign Rowe. Beautiful puzzle. I think if I was going to pick one up, which I very well might, it might be this one.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the top one on this article. And like you said, it's on thetrekcollective.com. I like this too. I think just because it's unique, and like you said, with all the details. I mean, the poster ones are cool, but I've seen these posters before. But these images for the Women of Star Trek is all new art that someone put together. And I noticed that this is all from TOS to Enterprise. I don't see anything Discovery or Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Picard, I'm not that surprised about. I'm a little surprised they didn't have Discovery on here. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of detail. There is one error, but I think maybe that's like the game, is to find there's one problem with it.
I do have to say that does bug me a little bit. And one of the characters is mirrored on it. So she has the comm badge on the wrong side, and, the image is flipped, which that always bugs me. But the artwork and stuff is so good that it might just be enough to overcome that for me.
Yep. Okay. So it's 1,000 puzzle pieces. Then we have the retro design posters. I've seen a lot of these posters before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are the Juan Ortiz retro posters. I had, for example, a calendar that had a bunch of them. TOS calendar last year, and I actually have the TNG calendar this year. And they're kind of removable poster pictures. I think there was a planner that came out as well, like a daily agenda type planner that used these images, and I think just like a poster book and stuff like that. And they've also shown up like on mugs in, I think the DVD set or the Blu-ray set that I got a couple years ago has some in there. So yeah, these are those images. If you think that there's that really famous one of Spocks from Mirror Mirror facing each other in orange and yellow, that's kind of, if you know that one, you're like, oh, okay, those ones. Yeah.
So there's two types. So there's one with some of these posters, and there's another one with different posters. Then we have the movie posters of movies 1 through 10 all together. And so it's not a puzzle of each poster. It's a puzzle that features all 10 posters in the puzzle. So
right. And there's also Juan Ortiz's TNG posters is on one of the puzzles as well, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so one of them's TOS, the other one's TNG. Yeah, okay. And then we have the posters from the movies. Then we have the TOS promotional photos, a collage of those. I think outside of the Women's Star Trek, I like this Gold Key retro one because, I have so much fun with the Gold Key comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something about that retro style. And I think if we hadn't covered those on Literary Treks, I wouldn't quite have that same love for this as I've developed over the last few years doing that. So that's definitely made that more meaningful for sure.
And then we have another one that's a promotional photo of Kirk and Spock, where Kirk's holding the big phaser rifle or whatever from way early in the day, and Spock is pointing like, shoot over there, shoot that one. Yeah, just shoot.
Yeah, I like that one too. That one's pretty cool. Lots of black though. That would be a tough puzzle, I think.
That one's 500 pieces. The smallest one we have is 100 pieces, and they call it the pocket size one, and it's the Many Emotions of Mr. Spock, and it's all the same picture. There's 12 of them of Mr. Spock, and one says happy, lonely, jealous, sadness. Of course, his expression never changes. If that was 1,000 pieces, that would be hard because the image is replicated so many times.
Oh man, that would be crazy making for sure.
So this is just some ideas. This is like something you can do to just kind of unwind and take your mind off stuff and put a puzzle together. There's plenty of these Star Trek posters out there. I'm saying that COVID-19, we're going to kick your butt because we're going to make this a Star Trek fan kind of celebration thing on in our own homes.
Hear, hear. That's the thing with the technology the way it is now. Like, there's so much we can do from our homes that we wouldn't have been able to do, even 10 years ago, but especially like 20 and 30 years ago. There's this connectivity. We can, like, you and I can do this podcast, for example, and people can connect via Zoom or Google Hangouts and all this stuff. So, there's so many ways for us to connect. And even when we're not connected, when we're stuck in our homes, there's things like these puzzles and that sort of thing that can really help us through these tough times.
And even the actors of Star Trek are out there trying to help you. They're tweeting fun things out. I mean, Patrick Stewart's reading Shakespeare almost daily.
Yeah, sonnet a day. I'm loving that.
I mean, there's little fun things that people are doing. As a matter of fact, Star Trek CBS, at Star Trek CBS, the Twitter feed, they tweeted out something with a bunch of the different actors from Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery. And they're just trying to say, hey, stay positive. We're here for you. We're all going through this. And we have audio of that. So let's go ahead and play that.
Hi, it's Jerry Ryan.
It's me, Sonequa Martin Green.
My name is Jonathan Frakes.
Brent Spiner here. This is a tough time for everybody.
Ooh, times like this can seem overwhelming.
Like me, you're probably at home glued to the TV.
I talk to the dogs. When they start talking back, I'll begin to worry.
These are stressful times.
But I want you to know that you are not alone.
You are not alone.
We're all connected.
We can still laugh and smile and share moments.
It's just a reminder of the compassion that we always have to have.
Let's keep being there for each other.
Because we're in this together.
We're in this together.
And we will live long and prosper.
That's a really nice, uplifting message, right? I mean, that kind of thing that we need to hear right now, that little bit of, just, again, the title, right? You are not alone. That says it all right there. We're all in this together. I know, cliche after cliche after cliche, but it really is true.
Yeah, when you see that it's not just you that's going through this, keep in mind we're all going through this, and even your favorite Star Trek actors are going through this. And some of them even mention of what they're doing to keep themselves busy at home. There's just things to do, and go out for a walk, just do that, get out, get some exercise and that sort of thing. But, I do have a little bit of depressing news.
Say it ain't so, Bruce. This is Positively Trek.
It is. But, this is a good time to even read Star Trek, but unfortunately the new comics are delayed because of COVID-19. So one of the biggest distributors of comics out there is Diamond Comic Distributors, and they announced a couple weeks ago that because of the coronavirus, they're suspending shipping of comics to retailers starting on April 1st until who knows when. So any of the new Star Trek comics that were announced to come out this month and going forward have been delayed to July. This includes the next issue of Star Trek Year 5, which was issue 11. There was the Khan-focused Mirror Universe one-shot. There was the new DS9 series called Too Long, A Sacrifice. That's delayed to July. And there was also a reissue of Debt of Honor, which I already have from years back, but that's been delayed too. So it's unfortunate, but there's so many Star Trek comics you can order online and novels and that sort of thing. So there's just plenty for you to still read. And this is a great time to catch up on reading.
Definitely, yeah. And the thing to remember too is this is temporary. This will pass. We will eventually get these comics. It's unfortunate that they are on hold for the moment, but again, it's a delay. It's not a cancellation. We're not going to not get these comics, and same with everything else in the entertainment world right now. Things may be delayed. Things may be put on hold. Some shows, maybe the season has been cut short or something like that, but the world will restart again. We will get to the point where, things are back to normal, whatever that normal looks like. We're going to get past all of this. So, there's light at the end of the tunnel is what I'm saying.
My life is never normal.
Yeah, I was kind of hesitating to use the word normal there. What is normal? I think normal in quote marks, I guess. So, yeah.
I don't know. But okay, I'm going to have to be honest here. I mean, I'm always honest, but I hate when I say I'm going to be honest because I usually am.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, except on April Fool's Day.
Of course.
Which I got in trouble this year from my wife.
I feel like we all agreed April Fool's was canceled this year, I think.
Oh, well, no one sent me the memo. I just did one little thing to my wife. It was just, first thing in the morning when I saw her, I kind of limped over to her and she goes, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, you just kicked me hard in bed last night." She goes, "Really?" I'm like, "No, April Fool's." And I knew she doesn't like it. I just thought just a tiny thing. And she got really mad at me. She goes, "You had me worried." I'm like, "It was 3 seconds." Anyway.
And then she kicked you for real.
Then she wanted to, for sure. But the thing is, it's like I've kind of enjoyed being at home. Like, I have enjoyed that I don't have to rush to the office and get up super early or anything like that. I do a lot of travel in my job, so I haven't had to travel. I mean, I enjoy the travel, but it's been nice just kind of not dealing with airports and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm home all the time, I mean, I feel like I have more time to watch Star Trek. I've watched more Star Trek than I usually do. Not a whole lot more, but I've watched a little more than usual. I've been reading some of my coffee table books and things of Star Trek related. And it's like, I'm kind of having my own little Star Trek convention here in my house.
No, it's true. I mean, those of us who have the privilege, I would say, of being able to stay at home. There are people out there, of course, who are essential workers, unfortunately,
which my wife is.
Yeah, who still have to, risk their health and that sort of thing to have to go out and do their jobs. And, shout out to all of you guys, like all the grocery store workers, all of the truck drivers, all of the medical workers. I mean, come on, thank you all so much. So, a mad respect for you. Those of us who are privileged to be able to stay home through something like this, it has kind of been a really weird blessing almost. People are rediscovering, more time with their family and bringing each other closer that way. And, a lot more time to get things done around the house that maybe you haven't had a chance to do. And, even if you're not using that time to get stuff done around the house, that's okay too. Things are tough right now. It's nice to have that time to kind of stop, slow down, breathe, take stock of what's really important and watch some Star Trek.
That's right. That's how to do it. I've never played the board game Life. I don't know how I've gone through all the 52 years of my life without playing that game, but we finally played it the other night. My kids have played it. My wife has played. We own it. For some reason, I just never played it. And I learned how to play, and I won.
Nice.
But that we don't play board games that often, but that's one of the things we did that, and we played Uno. I know how to play Uno. I've played Uno so many times with my kids. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I'm hearing so many stories like that of family kind of finding that time that they didn't have to do those little things like that. My fiance and I have had a lot of time together. We've played a bunch of games. We've watched all of Boy Meets World, which is an old show from the 90s.
Now you have to watch Girl Meets World.
We're actually starting that right now too.
I bet that was her idea, not yours.
Yeah, you would guess right. But I'm enjoying it. Yeah,
That's
it's been a lot of fun. Something we probably wouldn't have done if we didn't have all this time on our hands.
Well, speaking of time, I think it's time that we look at our poll.
Yes, that's right. So our last episode was all about the personhood of Jean-Luc Picard at the end of Star Trek Picard, and whether the golem that now contains his memories, consciousness, I don't know, whatever you believe, is that really Jean-Luc Picard? Is that the same consciousness of the original Jean-Luc Picard? And it took me a little while to come up with the right question, but the question I ended up asking on Twitter was, after the events of the season finale of Star Trek Picard, does the golem contain the actual consciousness of the original Jean-Luc Picard? And part of the way I asked that was probably the reason why a lot of people said yes, because I think that's the story they were trying to say, was that this is the original, real Jean-Luc Picard. Like, this is actually him. It's not just a copy. So, yes, voted overwhelmingly 83.8%, with no getting 16.2% of the votes as of the time of this recording. So, and then we've also got some interesting comment tweets after that as well, too. Most people, like I say, saying that he is, with a few people arguing that it's not. So, for example, Jill says, of course it's him. Body switching is nothing new in Trek. We've got someone else saying, yes, because the writers said so, and that because that is the theme of the season. So, yeah, pretty definitive there. We have Hopeful Helen saying, frankly, hashtag don't care. I dislike that outcome. He is no longer truly Picard. Where is his soul? That is the most important question. So a few people not really agreeing that this is actually still Jean-Luc Picard.
I like one comment says, oh, boo, spoiler alert next time.
I felt bad about that. I don't know. So I had it as hashtag Star Trek Picard, which hopefully some people who haven't seen it are using that to filter the tweets so they don't get spoilers. But I maybe should have written spoiler alert at the start of the tweet. And hopefully.
When is the appropriate time to say you know what I'm saying? When's the appropriate time for it not to be a spoiler? I mean, it's we could be 5 years from now and somebody hasn't watched Star Trek Picard and it's going to get spoiled.
That's true. I can't remember what it was, but I tweeted something a few weeks ago about something in Star Trek. I think it was Enterprise, or maybe it was Stargate or something, and somebody said spoilers. I was like, it came out decades ago, like over a decade ago. Like, come on, really?
Yeah, because if you said something about, when Dorothy killed the Wicked Witch of the West with water.
Whoa, spoilers.
Go, spoiler, I mean, how, I don't know.
Yeah, to be fair, we are only a couple of weeks out, and I know not everyone will have watched it, but so I do apologize for that. I will, if it's something this recent, remember to write spoiler alert for Star Trek Picard or something like that at the start of the tweet. So
yeah, we'll work on that. But here's, but also if anybody's following us, by the way, it's at Positively Trek on Twitter. That's where you want to follow us.
Absolutely.
If you're following us, then I would think everybody's caught up on Star Trek that follows the Star Trek Twitter feed like this. And then if somebody's not, and they're just looking at hashtag Star Trek Picard, and you haven't watched Star Trek Picard, you're probably going to get spoiled.
With apologies, but yeah.
we'll do better at that. But yeah, I just don't know when it's okay to be open. All right. Well, speaking of Twitter, Dan, where can we follow you on Twitter?
Well, you can follow me at Kertrats. That's KERTRATS. And of course, at Positively Trek, as Bruce mentioned, is the Twitter handle for the show. And Bruce, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Admiral_Rex. That's Admiral and then the little underline and then Rex. And that's where you can follow me on Twitter. And look for us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. We'll let you in. It's private right now. So there's actually some good posts in there. It's very active. I'm shocked.
Yeah, we have some really good contributors. So shout out to all of you guys who are posting stuff on the Positively Trek discussion group on Facebook. I love you all. Thank you so much for that.
I know when I see stuff posted in there, I'm like, I know I'm going to like these posts because if anybody's doing Positively Trek, I would expect they're going to be positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and join us next week and chill out. Let's try to get through all this together and stay positive.